and welcome back to the Weekend Spread, the Scooter Pod's weekly college football pick'em podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Howard, and we are all reporting live from our various, significant others, in-laws, whatever you call it, various spaces. So if you're listening or watching this live or back on playback in the audio or video is not as good as it usually is, that's kind of why. So it's the holidays. We're all having a good time here. So with me today, as always, we've got our just esteemed panel of guests. We've got Jameson Maxwell, Ty Lee, and Bowden Blake, the captain himself. So we're doing something a little different here. We don't want to go in and just kind of immediately go to pick'em mode because I feel like this week of college football, the playoff was so substantial that we kind of have to talk about it first. And let's just be upfront. It was not very good. The only game that was relatively close on the scoreboard was an Indiana-Notre Dame game that we all roasted immediately at the time. So I got to ask, and I'm going to ask Ty first because he's kind of had this take for a little bit. Is the new college football playoff broken, Ty?
It's hard to argue. I don't think it's broken. I could go on for an hour with my take on this. It's way too overvalued because everyone that's in it right now is riding on the reputation that the 14 playoff had, where it was a legitimate accomplishment. Obviously, there's always going to be the debates. We talked about this going into the season. There's always going to be this team got left out and should have been in debate. You could expand the playoff to whatever you want to. There's always going to be these people were left out. But I don't think anyone should be surprised at how this turned out, especially with some of these teams that lost, because it's, and I want to be careful saying this as an SEC fan because I'll get accused of bias here, but it's not a level playing field across college football. And year to year, the disparity between the top teams and even the, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teams in the nation is massive. And, did the 4 best teams in college football get a bye? No, I think we saw some of them play here, but it's something that if you were a ball knower, you knew what was going to happen. I told you guys this after the Notre Dame Indy thing. I was like, none of these games are going to be close. And so frankly, the ones that were kind of close were only sort of close because the winning team backed off, as they should, because why would you risk hurting people and continuing to just run the risk of wearing people down when you get into this playoff where you have to play a couple more games. So it was, I don't know. The home atmosphere was absolutely amazing though, but there's never going to be a Cinderella story in college football. The sport just doesn't work that way.
I'm kind of tired of hearing this narrative, Bobby, and we have to talk about it because that's what's being talked about. But legitimately, we just started doing this. We had played 3 games, and all of them had Vegas saying it was over, or 4 games, sorry. 4 games, and all of them had Vegas saying they were going to be more than a touchdown spread. So whenever there's a blowout or a big point, differential, people are mad. Really now? I understand, you'd see better quality if you had less people in the playoffs. Of course you would. That is a given, but we're getting more football. And there's going to be some years where there's going to be upsets. There are going to be some years where there are going to be close games, electric. And then the narrative's going to shift. Everyone just wants to play recency bias, and this sample size is not big enough, and I'm not having it.
Yeah, I don't get why people were so mad that the teams that you looked that lost were the underseeded teams. They were the ones that are supposed to get beat, and they got beat. That has kind of been the nature of this entire college football playoff thing, even when we go back to the 4-team era. The 4-team era till relatively recently, the semifinal games were basically blowouts all the time. We were rarely getting a chance to have one good one, let alone 2. We kind of started to get that with Michigan, TCU, then Georgia, Ohio State. But even then, most of the time, we would see a 1 seed just blow out a 4 seed immediately. It'd be a Notre Dame, it'd be a Cincinnati, it'd be somebody that was just kind of just a sacrificial lamb that they had to put there because of kind of like an Indiana, I guess like an Indiana case where it's like their record is good. the other team's records behind them aren't as good, so it's too hard to make that differentiator between the teams. This one's obviously a little bit bigger because you have more and more teams in it, but it worked how it was supposed to. Home teams had home field advantage, crust teams that came in. I'll cede the time.
It does need to be
You just
said.
can't put up your finger.
The Big Ten. Well, I didn't want to
interrupt. Yeah, hold on.
I didn't want to interrupt Bobby. There's a completely separate issue that the ACC is not guilty of this. They did not have that many good teams. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, SMU, Clemson, Indiana, those teams didn't deserve to be in the playoff. The Big Ten specifically, there needs to be a conversation about what they have done, because you cannot blame the ACC for this. They didn't have the depth. The Big Ten went out of their way to make sure that Penn State only played one meaningful game all season, that they didn't have to win or lose. Indiana came out of nowhere, so we can excuse that one. But there has to be something with these bigger conferences, right? Because you're going to see the SEC is going to start to take away these marquee matchups, and we're going to start preserving. Like, you could have schedule engineered any team in the SEC being in this. Ole Miss could have been schedule engineered into this playoff the same way Penn State was. So I will continue in the offseason about that. Penn State's going to lose this round, so it's a good point. But
and here's my thing, though, is it's not like Ole Miss, they weren't losing massive games. They lost to Kentucky and Florida. Alabama, they didn't get schedule engineered they had tough games. They had a tough schedule, but they lost to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Like, the problem with those teams is that they dropped the gimmies. And you can say, yeah, the grind of the schedule and all that. I get that, because your bad teams in the SEC are capable of beating you, whereas like a bad team in, the Big Ten, like a Purdue or whoever, they don't have the same bite that an Oklahoma or an Auburn has. And I think that's really the difference in the two leagues. That being said, it's just one of those things where, the sport has engineered super conferences to be too bloated. You see that in the ACC and you see that in the Big Ten. The ACC pretty much the same way. You have Clemson, who didn't have to play Miami during the regular season and didn't have to play SMU. SMU didn't have to play Miami or Clemson. And, Miami just, I don't know. It was a situation. And of course, Notre Dame doesn't have to play a conference championship. So the ACC is engineered to get these teams with low win totals in. So I really have more of an issue with the ACC than, whatever and the fact that we consider the ACC to be a step above the Big 12, or that we consider the Big Ten to be on the same level as the SEC or the other ones is absurd to me. That's also not saying that Alabama should have been in, or Ole Miss, or South Carolina, because 3 losses is too damn many. But I think it was just kind of a perfect storm situation where there weren't a lot of viable options for those lower seed teams, and those lower seed teams just weren't as good as the higher ones. So that's okay.
And I think, just going forward, people need to stop, drawing, I guess, when it comes to which teams are good, which teams are bad. Stop doing the conference lines thing. Just because Tennessee in the SEC Tennessee is in the SEC doesn't automatically make them good. Just because, a Penn State is in the Big Ten. You have to individually evaluate these teams. And, kind of the resounding thing coming out of this weekend was everybody that had, a really hot stance on what they thought of the playoff felt like they lost. You kind of had this SEC contingent that was looky here, Indiana, SMU, and Clemson don't even look like they belong on the field. But then their third best team goes against the Big Ten third best team and gets absolutely whomped. So nobody won this weekend when it came to where you stand on that side of the aisle. It just ends up that it's home teams have a big advantage. Usually the home teams are going to be the better teams. And we see in college football each year, it's even in a normal year, you'll have about 2 or 3 teams that could probably compete for the national championship, probably about 3 or 4 that could potentially get there if things break their way. And then the rest is just kind of on any given Saturday. And I just don't think there's depth in this sport that you're going to see 12 deep every single year. Like, I think people need to get that out of their head immediately, because that's never what the sport has been. The sport has been, you can get some lucky breaks to maybe get farther than you can go, but it really is like the teams that are the best will rise to the top and win a national championship.
I do want to jump in for a little positive here real quick. It does. I want to go on the record and say SMU and Indiana specifically, tremendous season for both of those teams. Clemson excluded from this because they don't deserve it. But SMU, right, first season in a new conference. A lot of people had them at the bottom of the conference, right? We can talk about the depth and who they played and who they didn't, but making it to where they did for SMU is tremendous. And same with Indiana. They won 3 games last year. First year of a coach, pulled in players from across what people would consider lesser conferences and divisions of the sport, and what they've done has been tremendous, right? Their schedule, whatever, but like we talked about with the SEC, you got to win those games that you're supposed to win. It's kind of the same thing with Army, although their season has kind of floundered towards the ends, right? You have to win the games that you're supposed to win. And like we talked about, a lot of these SEC teams, I would say South Carolina's in the same boat. They overperformed, and they're lucky that they get to be in the conversation of maybe we could have been in. But if you're Ole Miss or you're Alabama, you can't lose those ones. Like, you have to give credit to the teams who win the games that they're supposed to, because like Blake said, it's not the norm in this sport all the time. It's certainly not the norm to drop as many as Bama did or as many as Ole Miss did.
Well, and I mean, in previous years, losing to Vanderbilt would be a death knell. Just losing to them alone would make it incredibly hard to get into a 4-teamer. So the fact that you're even in a fringe conversation with 3 losses and 2 of them being as bad as they are is, I mean, that's opportunity right there. So, I think to me, it's one of those things that, look, just win your ball games and all of that. I don't think you should care about, what, like, the quality of play or the quality of what the product is. That's garbage. Indiana absolutely deserved that ass beaten. Same with SMU. They earned their way there. And that, I don't know. I think it's silly to play revisionist history on that.
Some teams hang banners for playoff losses.
I'm okay with acknowledging that you've been in the playoff. Like, you acknowledge bowl wins or whatever, All-Americans. Acknowledge that you went to the playoff. I'm fine with that. Just put a little tick next to it.
Your Tennessee fans will be doing, right?
Yeah, like our friends in Tennessee. I gotta say, what an all-time showing from them. But what a just falling flat on your face after all of that smack talk.
Tennessee fans' fault. The Tennessee fans have nothing to be ashamed of.
They did their part. They showed up. That is as fierce and incredible as a fan base can get, and it's really unfortunate that they got let down. And I gotta say, it is a pretty funny, full circle moment that you now have Tennessee fans turning on Heupel.
Oh my God! I don't know if this was real. But, whenever Tennessee fans were coming out that much, I don't know if this got sent in one of our group texts either, but one of the Ohio State fans told a 5-year-old Tennessee fan that Santa Claus wasn't real. See, that's what college football is all about. Like, that's where you go and you learn curse words as a kid. You learn Santa Claus isn't real. You learn that in the stadium. That's how you grow up.
Hard truths. Yeah,
I heard the F
feels
word
like
first time in OU, Texas. I'll never forget it.
I learned about the F word via a Tuck Fexus shirt. I was like, what does that mean, Dad?
Your dad was probably like, son, it's F, and that's how we say it.
Anyways, and I gotta say, that's the biggest thing to me. And Ty had a really good point in the group chat kind of about this. The home playoff vibes were just incredible. Like that, you could say whatever about the games, but the atmospheres across the board were so fun, so incredible, and it's something that I would love to see more of in round 2. Because and we'll get into it when we start talking about these individual matchups, but I thought every one of them was super fun, super exciting, and would love to see. That was such a huge success.
Can we at least shows individual matchups? Oh yeah, go for your last point. Like,
Oh, it's like at least like it show the like how good the home atmospheres was shows that seeding does matter. Like you want to get a higher seed if you're going to be in that first round game because it felt like at times like SMU could have won, SMU could have been in that game for a lot longer. Like they besides those 2 pick sixes, Penn State really wasn't moving the ball, but it felt like that crowd was really rattling SMU to the point that even ignoring the pick sixes, like they could barely communicate. They couldn't. What? What are you doing,
the
Jameson?
the crowd at Penn State was rattling SMU. Huh?
Yes.
No, I think someone in our podcast said that the Penn State crowd was going to be anemic.
SMU has never played more than
that was not me. I was
SMU has never played more than 5,000.
Bobby was ticket price Bobby, like doing analysis on TickPick.
I'm saying they were not. Look, they were not fired up for that one. I will say, they let
the locals in. They let the local Penn State fans in whenever the tickets were cheap.
They couldn't.
Yeah,
SMU couldn't run the no huddle because it was so loud. This is like
Kevin Jennings was
rattled.
Well, but over years, and it was like
the entire time was like this.
Okay, so here's a reminder too. Here are SMU's road games: Nevada, Louisville, Stanford, Duke, Virginia. None of those are remotely close to Happy Valley.
Louisville and Duke are pretty good, but obviously not comparative to
either.
No. They're pretty good.
Are you saying the Papa John?
No. I'm not saying their environment.
The stadium formerly known as the Papa John.
What is it? What is the?
I'm not saying they're bad wins. They're just not the same environments.
Ty, what is it? An epidemic is coming, or the end is coming.
What did he say? The day of reckoning is coming. But
Duke,
that Duke game was not anywhere close to filled up, and Duke Stadium only seats 35,000 people.
I'm just saying good football teams.
I said 5,000 as a joke earlier. SMU may legitimately hadn't played in front of more than 20,000 people all season.
They played in front of 50.
Maybe the ACC championship. When did they go in front of 50?
And that was at Louisville.
Even then, that's half. And was that a sold out stadium though?
That's their reported attendance from L&N Financial Credit Union Stadium.
Yeah, but is that like they sold 50,000 tickets? Because OU's been claiming sellouts all this season, and it's looking it's looking like Kevin Durant's hairline up there.
The tickets are sold. The tickets are sold. They're just attendances. They definitely put paid attendance up there once. So
are they counting like the staff in that 50,000? Like all the security guards, every time you go in and out of the bathroom, it counts as a stadium entry.
Do they count the Papa John suite that is empty because they are legally not able to reacquire it? There's just an empty suite that sits in that stadium that's for the Papa, and they can't access it.
Can we talk about how Chappell Roan says that Papa John is hot in one of her songs?
Yeah, well, I think she was... No. I think she's talking about the food, Jameson. Keep it hot like Papa... Yeah. Make it hot like Papa John, right? Yeah.
I would love to see
I don't.
In one room just to see what conversation comes out of that.
If you've ever seen pictures of people taking pictures with the Papa taking pictures with Louisville fans,
he gets drunk.
He's very hot, but in like a sweaty way.
He's red and drunk.
I think it's probably a little bit more than alcohol at that point. Like he looks.
Probably. Look, we probably talked about Papa John for quite too much of this podcast. Let's get into some of these. Let's get into some of these bowl playoff matchups, and we'll kind of talk about the team's performance in the previous game. And we'll just start out with Penn State. Penn State, Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. And look, I think Penn State. It's hard to look at a 38 whatever score against SMU and be like, oh yeah, like pedestrian. But SMU kind of completely folded. That was a disaster. And for large parts of that game, the Mustangs were kind of outplaying Penn State. The problem is anytime something good would happen, Kevin Jennings would completely lose it and, pick six. So it's tricky for me to evaluate that Penn State game. And not only that, you're going in and playing a Boise team that frankly, I don't think has ever lost in a Fiesta Bowl, and they just get this added boost of strength. As OU fans, we all know about that. As Blake would know about from that TCU game. You do not want to see the Broncos in a Fiesta Bowl.
You do not. Like they that is their venue, and I'm so happy that they are showing up in Arizona. This game's gonna be really interesting, though. Like I don't think just because Penn State was dominant, they did not don't write them off. Don't write them off against this Boise State team. We saw them earlier against Oregon this year. Really should have beat them. Like, honestly, we shouldn't be talking about undefeated Boise State here, but I don't think they're going to be rattled like SMU. One, you're not going to see you're going to see a 50-50 crowd. You're not going to see a Penn State domination like they did, but I just think they are more senior, more well composed, better coached. I think they're a little bit more balanced. They didn't I think Kevin Jennings was a cheat code in the ACC where I feel like the defenses were not as good. He kind of went up against the bottom half of them, and they could really rely on him with his legs, him kind of being able to scramble around in the pocket, and that failed like against Penn State. Penn State was all over him in 2 seconds. So Boise State just plays a more traditional style ball. Maddox Madsen, he's a good quarterback. I wouldn't say fantastic, but Ashton Genty is going to be the big one here. It's like, how effective is he going to be? How much are they going to lean on him? I'm curious to see a Boise State game plan that is not trying to win them the Heisman. So I'm like, do they go a little bit more balanced? Do they try to get the play action going? Do they try to do a little bit else? But look, I think this one's going to be really close. I do. I think Boise State just plays well in big games traditionally. They're a program that it feels like it kind of has a blue-collar attitude towards them, which I think matches up well against a Penn State team that kind of plays that physical style ball. Sure, Penn State's a little bit more talented, but I think Boise State has developed some really heavy hitters, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So this sneaky one I'm really excited about. Don't write off Boise State just because they're a G5 school.
Sorry, I'm trying to send a video of the wrestler to somebody I'm beating in fantasy football. Sorry, I should not be doing multitasking.
Wait.
Yeah, the Rizzler can wait on that one, Jameson.
Sorry. I'm bringing up Chapel Run and the Rizzler on our podcast.
You're just really big in the 2024
Jameson,
draft, aren't you?
Tell everyone where you're sitting right now as well.
I am sitting in one of the guest bedrooms of my wife's father's home.
Are you on a chair? Are you on a couch?
I am on a chair. Why?
I thought you said you were sitting on the floor.
No. You just said I looked like I was sitting on the floor, and then I laughed, and you couldn't hear what I said because you weren't changing your audio source. Okay, screw it.
Regardless.
He laughed in an affirmative manner.
Okay, excuse me. I didn't know that my consent is a laugh. Okay, Ty. So let's move on.
Okay, so Boise Penn State here. Jameson, what are your thoughts on this matchup? I think it is a really, the spread is I think 10.5 right now on ESPN Bet.
Yeah.
And to me that feels a little high.
It is, but one thing, Boise State has never played in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, so let's just throw that out there. It's not the Vizio, it's not the Tostitos anymore, Bobby. It's a new era.
Not the Battle Frog. No Battle Toad.
It's new era now. But it will be fun to watch. But what worries me as a fan excited for this game is I feel like Penn State's run defense is pretty darn good. I feel like they really kind of put SMU in a tough spot and really forced Kevin Jennings into scenarios he didn't want to because they couldn't really establish the run early downs. The interior defensive line and then Abdul Carter on the outside was really good for Penn State despite the woes on Penn State's offense. So I think it could be another similar situation here where if you shut down, or at least limit Ashton Genty and make Maddox Madsen, go out of his comfort zone, there could be mistakes. That's not their strength moving forward. And Penn State's defense can wear away and win this game and still get people to shout on them because their offense didn't look as good and their defense looked really damn good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the clear key to the game for Penn State is making Boise very one-dimensional. Like Blake said, there hasn't been a ton of Madsen this season, and mainly because you don't need to air it out with him. But if you can, and we've seen situations like this, like last year, for example, with OSU, Oklahoma State, where they would try to run Ollie Gordon against a more stacked defense, and they can't do anything. And obviously, Genty significantly better than Gordon, especially last year, but a way different player physically. But it's going to be a challenge, and I think you see what he did against Oregon. Granted, that was an Oregon team that was significantly different than the one we're seeing right now. They were undisciplined. They were sloppy. They had just barely survived Ohio a week before, and they've done a lot since then. So that Ducks team was not quite on the same level as the one we're seeing now, or even as this Penn State team we're seeing here in a couple of weeks, or in a week or so. So I'm intrigued to see how it works. What's that?
I know we got some Drew Aller lovers on this pod. Tell me the hype around him now. Like, Penn State fans were so excited for him to come back. He looked not good against SMU. He was like the only, I think, like, bad spot on
he
that
healthy?
team that entire game.
Is he truly 100% healthy is the thing? Because, like, you'd expect him to be a little bit more mobile and confident in the pocket. He does not have any of that right now. He has no confidence in the pocket. It makes you think that he at least got something with his health, because that's one thing that he's been pretty decent at in his career. He's just not, like, he's usually calm, cool, and collected. He doesn't look like that right now.
Because it felt like he just loved the Tyler Warren safety valve. It was just kind of hitting that each time. And like any of his yards he was getting was from that. And when they forced him to throw like an actual pass across the middle of the field or like a comeback route, he was just missing guys, like not even getting close. I'm just not impressed by him. I'm not impressed by him at all. I don't see why people thought he was a good NFL prospect. I don't see why people are so excited that he's coming back. Every big moment I've seen this guy in, he just doesn't show up. So I'm curious if Boise State can kind of push the issue there, get him a little uncomfortable, and see if he can actually turn him over, do something which SMU just couldn't do the entire day.
Ty is a noted Penn State hater. You've been awfully quiet over there.
Yeah. First off, I just want the record to reflect. In talking about Penn State versus SMU, you guys are telling me that a football team from Dallas made it to the postseason and did everything that they needed to do, but an incompetent quarterback ruined their run. I find that hard to believe. That's never happened. With that being said,
that's normally competent during the season, but in the second,
just mysteriously goes to garbage the second it actually matters. Interesting. First thing I need to say, we're hopefully not going to get sued by Verbo, but this is called the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Most Verbo properties apparently do not allow fiestas, so that does seem to be misleading. It appears looking at Verbo's
that's a very good point.
It appears looking at Verbo's website that as a policy, they generally ban parties and hosts must allow, if you don't know, Verbo's like that other place where you can rent homes. I forgot the name. Airbnb. It's like Airbnb. But the renters have to specifically allow parties. And I'm looking at the entire Dallas-Fort Worth area. And of all the properties on Verbo, not a single one permits a party. So I understand that's not where the Fiesta Bowl is being played, but I thought that was something that OU fans and listeners of the pod could kind of wrap their minds around. So
who parties better, Boise or Penn State?
Penn State.
Boise.
Penn State.
No.
Boise. I don't know.
Penn State has
actually it's got to be Boise.
Students. And
Boise's also
Eagles
like
fans and Steelers fans and kids that couldn't get into New York schools.
Boise academically is also like atrocious. Like it's like no offense to
UCO, but helping the partying
that's
aspect.
True. That's what I'm saying. That's a positive.
Give me Penn State.
Picks. I'm gonna go Boise to cover, but Penn State will find a way to win this one.
Penn State cover.
Probably.
I think Penn State covers. I feel like they just hit a god.
I'm gonna go Boise. This doesn't matter. I'm gonna go Boise.
Yeah, it doesn't. I believe it. I like to believe it, keeping it close, even though reality has shown me otherwise. Let's move on to our next game. It's Texas, fresh off of a pretty solid win against the Clemson Tigers. They're heading to Atlanta to take on the Arizona State Sun Devils in the Peach Bowl. Arizona State, I'm sure, a little pissed off that they're not in the Fiesta Bowl, right around the corner from them. But there you go. So. Look, Texas obviously solid win against Clemson, but they kind of almost let the Tigers get back into that one. Clemson cut it to 7. before Texas was like, you know what, let's just keep running the ball because that was working last time. And there you go, ball game right there. So I feel like this is just a really, really good matchup for the Longhorns overall. Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. See, this is where I don't know how to evaluate Arizona State because being honest about my conference, which many won't in today's landscape, like the Big 12 kind of had a down year. There wasn't an elite team. I think there was a kind of a good crop of good teams towards the top, but Arizona State I think kind of biasly differentiates themselves a little bit just because I felt like at the end of the season they really hit a run there where it just felt like they were significantly better than any other Big 12 team. And then I look on the opposite side of it, and Texas, like, they that was impressive. Like, that was an impressive win against the Clemson team. Even though, like, Clemson, not as good this year, they're going up against a coach like Dabo that knows how to coach in big games. And we're still able to kind of get it done. They're still able to put them away, even if they let them back in. But I just worry is what the Quinn Ewers factor. It's weird to me that the current favorite to win the national championship has a quarterback that if he comes back is destined to go to the portal because they are so set on moving on to the next guy. That just feels really, really weird to me. And in this game, it kind of shows like he was efficient. Like he's getting 8-9 yards a catch, like doing good things, but he's still turnover prone. He still doesn't just do those like elite little things where I worry about with an Arizona State team that is very well coached. I think Cam Scatabo is probably the best player in this game. I think Sam Levitt you could make a case, could be a little bit more of a gamer than Quinn Ewers. I think
Whoa.
I do. He's young. He's young. He still has time to develop. And I feel like he kind of just has that effort factor that which we did not see at all during these games. Like, none of these underdog teams came in trying to play like underdogs, trying to win these games. They were just being so conservative. Indiana was doing it all the time. It felt like SMU was doing it at times. They were just kind of being very skittish in times where they have to come up, but I don't feel like that's Kenny Dillingham. Like, that guy scares me. That guy scares me when he gets on the sideline. So I think Texas wins here just because overall I think talent wins at the end of the day. They have too much there. They're well coached, but I think this game is a lot closer than we think. I think Arizona State puts up a good fight, and I pray that they do. It'd be nice, a good look on the Big 12 that we get trashed the most out of any conference, that hey, maybe we put up a good effort and don't get blown out. But the only thing that worries me, like, I'm going to take Arizona State and the points. The only thing that worries me about it is I feel like Dillingham is going to play like an underdog. So if those trick plays, those fourth down conversions don't go their way, this one's going to get ugly. Like, I don't think he cares about final score. I think he wants to actually go out there and try to win the game and not just make it look like Kurt Signetti, like, oh, we didn't get blown out that bad. I think he's going to, like, put the pedal to the metal and try to beat this team. So I'm going to take Arizona with the points, but I think this is going to be a very solid matchup. I'm very excited.
Yeah, cheer for Arizona State. It's just too fun. We said this before. Kenny Dillingham and crew is just too fun not to cheer for. And I think you're right, because Texas, I do think, could, blow them out and really handle them. But at the same time here, like, this is game number 2 for Texas. This is a team that's talking about national championship, Texas. That's in 2 more games after this one. That's a lot. It's very easy to trip up, and this is a game where you trip up. I'm going to take Arizona State with the points here, and I'm going to cheer for them, and I enjoy it, and if they get blown out, so be it. But I think that Arizona State has the recipe for a team that will be looked at and undervalued, but also could kind of chip away, control the time of possession, and beat Texas in the end.
Yeah, not only that, but to me, I feel like Texas, like, when talking about the strength of this team, everyone obviously looks at the quarterbacks, Manning and Ewers, all that. Texas is a defensive football team with what has become an incredible running game. This Longhorn team, I think, would be in quite a bit of trouble if they didn't have Quintravian Weisner and Jaden Blue step up and be the game changers that they are. Ewers is a bit of a check down merchant, all things considered. There's a reason why Gunnar Helm leads the team in receptions. And to me, I don't know. I think he gets bailed out by really, really good defense and the running game, like he did last time out. That time of possession factor, though, Jameson, you're dead on. If Arizona State can slow it down, make this a close game, we all know what Cam Scatabo can do. That being said, this Texas defensive line, interior-wise, is just so damn good. Dabo made the mistake of not watching the A&M film, clearly. Got stuffed on 4th and 1. You can't just run into the teeth of them. And I just feel like Texas is too big. They're too stacked of a team on defense to lose this one. Spread is what, 10? I'm going to stick with Arizona State covering, but I feel like this is a game that we look at and Texas just kind of plays with their food a little bit, gets the job done, but not in an impressive manner like they've been doing all season.
Yeah, this one is first. This round is going to be much better than the last round for sure. This one, I think I'm going to say something that everyone kind of knows, but I think I'm packaging it. I like to think I'm packaging it a little differently. I know I'm not, but when we talk about the two quarterbacks, the quarterback matchup, and you talk about, Quinn Ewers getting carried by this team, and then, Scatabo can make wild stuff happen. Hey, to me, you're just saying this team of Texas is fundamentally really, really good, and the team of Arizona State is just not as good. They're not bad. I don't want to say they're bad or anything like that, but they're not at the same level. And even if Ewers plays down to his lowest and Scatabo plays up to his best, I still think, that looks to me to be what the line is. The one thing that worries me is the fact that, again, if you're Texas, you have there's no reason to win this one by any more than you have to. There's no reason to risk anyone. There's no reason to, everything else, same as the other one. So I would maybe worry that Texas stays on the gas a little bit and this one ends up, Arizona State backdoor cover when the game is firmly in Texas's hands. But I'm going to ride with the Longhorns here. I think 10 is pretty reasonable, even with ASU's, bye weeks and time to prep.
It's actually 14. I was wrong on that. So Vegas is very.
Yeah, I like that 14. That's a fun one. I like that one.
Yeah,
I like ASU at 14.
ASU at 14 feels really good there. All right, moving on to what is just a banger of a matchup: Oregon, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. The more things change, apparently the more they stay the same, because this feels like a classic Rose Bowl from our childhood. You can think about the portal and all that, but for 4 quarters on New Year's Day, watching this is just going to feel right. And I'm really excited to watch it. It feels like a Pac-12 Big Ten game, the way God intended. So I'm excited for this one. Obviously, Oregon, undefeated, been just a dog all season long. But my goodness, that Ohio State performance last night was astonishingly good. The Buckeyes looked like an entirely different team, and this is a team we've kind of been waiting to see. And look, we've all criticized the Buckeyes. We've all criticized Ryan Day. I think those are fair criticisms. But my God, this team, if they were like this all year long, they'd be our consensus number one, consensus national champion. And you've got to be just scared to hell if you're anybody else in this playoff race. Because they're damn good.
But that's what I was saying last week. I was like, this team really performed well all season long. They performed well against Oregon. They just had this weird blip versus Michigan where they tried to play Michigan-style ball and beat them at it, which doesn't make sense. I think we knew what Ohio State was. They're very talented. They have every offensive weapon in the book. And I think they're going to show up this game. My opinion really hasn't changed even after that Tennessee game. I'm like, that's kind of what I thought Ohio State was all season. It's just Ryan Day kind of gets in his own head, but it looks like he's kind of cleared some of that up. And I think this one's going to be I don't even know who's really going to win this one. It's going to be a banger of a game. We saw the first time, the first game was awesome. This iteration was everything you wanted out of football. It wasn't this is what I loved about it. It wasn't some just offensive shootout. It wasn't some just traditional Big Ten, 17-10 grinder. It had some good scoring. It had some good defensive moments. And I think that's really going to shine through here. And I think these teams we're seeing them, like I felt like Oregon wasn't really, that was kind of their peaking of when, things were not going well up until that point, and then they finally felt like they got it. But both these teams are going at 100% right now. The weapons just across the field are going to be fantastic. Like this could easily be the national championship in the quarterfinals, which makes it sad. But this one's going to deliver. Like there's going to be no blowout here. This one's going to deliver. I can promise you that.
Blake said the perfect thing. It's weird because we've seen 4 playoff games. We just talked about 2 more. And this is the first playoff game where there's 2 teams that could actually be national champions playing in it. I thought it was supposed to be every game when it's the playoffs, but that's neither here nor there. Here's the thing that I am scared for my beloved Duckies to have to play Ohio State again. That is hard with a team that is this good. But I think if you're Oregon, your focus has been Ohio State pretty much all season. You knew you were going to play them early on. You were focused on that. They were your main in-conference rival. Until they lost to Michigan, if you're Oregon, you're prepping to play them in the Big Ten championship. So they've prepped for that and then, switch it up a little bit, beat Penn State. And then I guarantee, knowing, the way that they run things over at Oregon, that they probably didn't do all too much prep for Tennessee, that they probably have been prepping mostly to play this Ohio State team again. So Oregon with some rest. Oregon is, look, they've won. Yeah, they've had some games that they've just squeaked by in. Both of those are against teams that are very legitimate contenders in the playoff. Right? They squeaked by a guy who many think should have won the Heisman and is also got a bye in the playoff, one of 3 other teams that got that. And then Ohio State, that we've seen as a very, very, very solid team if they just play their own game and not try to bend it to that Michigan thing is just inexplicable. But I am very, very worried about my Duckies in this one. But I think, hopefully there's some hangover from Ohio State. Ohio State's had to prep for a bunch of different people. They have that big emotional roller coaster at Michigan. I don't think they've spent anywhere near as much time prepping for Oregon because they prepped for Michigan. They prepped for all this, they had to play this game against Tennessee. I think that the Duckies have everything going for them here. There's been some criticisms of Oregon, right? Not covering when they should have. They had some absurd lines at the start of the season. They haven't been all that great against the spread, but it's the playoffs. You don't have to be. You don't have to be in the regular season either. Just go undefeated like they did. But if they win this one by 1, then they advance through, and it's a pretty clear path, at least for a little bit after that. So I'm going to go ahead and ride with my Duckies here. I think that prep time and that rest time is so crucial if they can stay focused. And Dan Lanning is one of the rare coaches in college football nowadays that I think can keep people focused and motivated for that amount of time.
I think I see what you're saying with the prep and rest time, which is one narrative, but I might take the exact opposite here. And I think I'm going to pick every single team that played in round 1 to win in round 2. And that's going to change the narrative of what people were saying about, look at the bye. These teams should have, let's say, for example, we shouldn't have put in Arizona State with the bye. They should have been in the first round, and we should have given who's next up? Would have been Penn State. I don't
in terms of buys, it would have been
it would be Texas. Would have been Texas. So Texas should have gotten the bye. I think that the narrative is going to shift here to where every single one of the teams that played in week 1 of the CFP and played very, very well, they're going to take that momentum. Those jitters are out. They got the jitters out in round 1, and great momentum, great confidence, and it's going to provide wins for each and one of them. And while that is 3 favorites and 1 underdog, so it's not really the hottest take, I think that that's going to really benefit Ohio State here. They needed that round 1 win so bad to change the narrative back because, yes, Blake said that they played great the whole season. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because there's still chirps. There's still whispers in their ear of is Ryan Day it? Is this team it? Do we need to move on and completely change this program? And it's a completely different story now. And I think Oregon should be really scared.
Yeah. I mean, there is something about the hot hand. And I wouldn't want to be playing the Buckeyes right now either. And it feels like a one hell of a reward for going undefeated is congrats, you get Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. It's truly neutral. But there's no way to prevent that. Like, even if you reseed it, this is your seed. That's just how it is. You got really unlucky. I think this is going to be a great game. I feel like I'm still trending Oregon. I just feel like they're a really complete team on offense. I feel like Lanning gets them up. And at the end of the day, I still feel like in a hotly contested game, I still like Gabriel more than I like Will Howard. So I think I'm going to go Oregon. But, I mean, this is a true coin flip if you ask me.
This is an entirely useless stat, and it's really only useful for like a fun fact, unless you want to really, really latch your wagon to the horse of number of games matters. This is the only matchup this round where both teams have played the same number of games, because Oregon had the Big Ten championship and Ohio State had the first round. Every other one, they're one off because they either didn't play in a conference championship, Notre Dame, or it's conference championship differences.
That's intriguing. Wow. Yeah, but should be a good one. Looking forward to it. I mean, that is very interesting, actually, the wear and tear factor. You can't really calculate that. Moving on to our final quarterfinal here. It's Notre Dame and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia, of course, will be without, and I believe reportedly will be out without Carson Beck in this one. So should be interesting. Notre Dame coming off of what felt like a pretty big trouncing of Indiana. They didn't quite have the same fervor in the second half, but I think it was a definitive win for the Fighting Irish. This is another game I think is going to be just a bit of a... I think this one will be a bit more of a rock fight than the other one. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. And can I just pull the group? I feel like there was a narrative this past couple weeks since we saw Gunnar Stockton go in for Carson Beck that Gunnar Stockton, damn, he looked good. There's not going to be that big of a drop off. I'm not in that same conversation. I really don't know where that's coming from. Please tell me that people agree with me that Gunnar Stockton didn't look that impressive, right?
Gunnar Stockton looked like Marcel Reed kind of coming in for Connor Wegman. Yes, the initial shock factor of him being able to run the ball and run the ball effectively, like kind of put Texas on skates a little bit. But I think once you can kind of game plan for that, it's not going to be as effective.
And he's not that crazy of an athlete either, right?
No, he's just more of he felt like a gamer.
Yeah, and so I don't think that they're gonna have any problem. This Notre Dame defense is damn good. Like I don't think that they're gonna have any problem, or not gonna be too scared of Gunnar Stockton. He might make a couple plays. I don't know if it's just my eye test and what I'm seeing. Like I wasn't blown away by it.
I think also college football is an emotional game. It's a lot less technical than the NFL. The skill isn't on the same level, I feel like. And when you have a guy go down in a hot, like just very emotional game, like that can provide a boost. That can provide some sort of weird motivation to go out and, it's a shift. And I feel like that might have been a factor there. Texas had been controlling the game that entire first half. So any change to the status quo could throw off everything. And I feel like that's kind of what happened there. So I'm with you. I don't think Stockton is some supreme talent, but I don't know. I don't think he's garbage either. I think we really...
No, he's not at all. I just don't think
I consider this
maker to win the game.
I consider this to be kind of an unknown with me. I do not know how we're going to see Gunnar Stockton go in where he's just going in. Are you saying he's a Fromm? Is he a Fromm tie?
No. This is a 21, because what this is 2021 Florida quarterback situation. Blake knows exactly what I'm talking about here. This is Anthony Richardson versus Emory Jones. Both are garbage. Both have some sort of fan bases that think that they should play. Absolutely irrelevant. They're identical.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a really good game. I think that there are going to be two teams going at each other's throats. Georgia's defense will show up because they show up in the big games. But I think this Notre Dame team I've been really impressed with, and I think that they can establish their run game, play good defense, and put a young, inexperienced quarterback in bad positions and get a couple positives in the turnover battle and win this football game.
It's wild to me that Gunnar Stockton's their future next year. Just rolling into that. I just feel like Georgia's misevaluating the quarterbacks right now, and it's really hurting them. It really is. These guys aren't special. They're just not. Not to be a downer.
Look, here's the
Notre
thing.
Dame looks fantastic.
It's just a bunch of Jags.
Here's what you guys need to know about Gunnar Stockton. He is from a town called Tiger, Georgia. And you guys want to guess what the population of Tiger is? Hey, everyone give me a guess. I'll tell you higher or lower. Bobby.
3,500.
Lower, Jameson.
Let's go with an even 1,000.
Lower.
Oh, no way.
750 people?
Lower. It's 422. Unless Gunnar Stockton is, I guess, at college, and then it's 421. So
this sign has like one of those little like gambling tickers. It flips depending on who's in and out.
Yeah, but it's a ball nowhere state though, Georgia, and that's the thing. And I think it is absolutely disgusting that the playoffs have been engineered to hand Notre Dame its first real postseason win since 1993. Now they can claim that they won a postseason game, but thankfully they're about to run into Georgia. Like it's not going to be. I don't think this one's going to be close. I think Georgia wins this one by 14, and I think they get off the gas early on. I think Notre Dame hangover. It's the best. Like, look, I was on Notre Dame when they went to Texas A&M. I think I was on an island on that one when we picked it. I believed in Notre Dame, but a team that lost to Northern Illinois, right? That point has been beaten up on a little bit, but that Louisville game was not too pretty. And we've seen that USC game was also not too pretty. That's what I was thinking of. I was blanking. You cannot tell me that a team that almost lost to USC is going to lose to this Georgia. Like Georgia is going to come together in the postseason, in the playoff, and we're going to get the most absolutely disgusting results, particularly if Ohio State knocks out Oregon, where we could just see another Georgia national championship, which I would hate. But I think Georgia wins this one big, and I think they embarrass Notre Dame. Shout out Ford if you're listening. I will ride with you on the Notre Dame hate train.
See, I'm on the opposite.
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame's way more impressive than we're giving them credit for. They are a fundamentally sound team with a good quarterback that is just kind of a gamer. He's not elite, but he can go out there, run the ball. He can throw the ball decently well, but Jeremiah Love is so good. He's so good. And Georgia hasn't faced, I feel like, elite running backs yet. They really haven't had that game where they're going up against a team that can actually run the ball behind a good physical line like them. Because Texas is probably the closest that you have. They have a great line, but the running back room is definitely not as good. Jeremiah Love's fantastic. I think Notre Dame wins this. But I think it's going to be close, but I think Notre Dame wins this.
And my counterpoint to that is I don't know if Jeremiah Love will be able to run it the same way on Georgia that he did on Indiana. Keep in mind, if you look at the stat, obviously 108 yards is impressive, but 98 of those were on one run. So I don't know if Georgia will allow a home run like that. I feel like Indiana, you could really see the disparity in recruiting. One was a bunch of JMU, MAC overachievers, which credit to them, but when you're not beating up on the dregs of the Big Ten anymore. You're going up against a team that has a bunch of 4 and 5 stars. Notre Dame recruits really well under Marcus Freeman, and I feel like that disparity really showed itself. And that's not to knock Georgia, not to knock Notre Dame. I feel like it's a pretty evenly matched game. So right now, I think this does feel like a toss-up, especially given Stockton. I like the physicality of Georgia a little bit more to neutralize what Notre Dame does best, though.
It needs to be said. Love has like 1,000 yards rushing on the season. He's not. I mean, I'm just skimming through Georgia's schedule, but he played a much easier schedule than Tennessee, for example, and he has 500 yards less than Dylan Sampson. So I don't think that Georgia has not seen a run game like that. Georgia is very much Clemson's back, has more yards than Love. Obviously, maybe easier schedule.
Phil Moff is hurt though, so who he
not.
is now is not who he is then. But I get that, Ty.
I think Georgia has very much faced a credible run threat though.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this combination for Notre Dame. Like, I think they really have the pieces here to put something special. I'm not a Georgia believer. I know everybody's all over them just because they are the champion of the SEC, but this is not the Georgia teams that we saw a few years ago. Like, I don't even think anywhere close.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with
we
that.
lost games too. Like, everybody's acting like this Georgia team just ran the gauntlet and was just beating up everybody. They lost games this year.
Notre Dame won one postseason game, and you guys have forgotten who they are. It's not that Georgia's good.
Yeah, no, and I think Georgia's definitely beatable. I'm not saying they're unbeatable. I just kind of trend more towards them at the moment because and that's not even. I don't even think that's much of an indictment on Notre Dame, who I think is very good. I think this is a truly excellent matchup. I just kind of like the physicality of the Dogs a bit more.
I don't think it's a bad take either way. That's why the spread is within a field goal.
Bangers.
That's why it's good.
Game.
That's why it's a banger of a game. All right, so let's move on. Frankly, we're all with family, and we all kind of need to get back to it and all of that. So instead of talking about some of the other big polls, we're an Oklahoma show. We got to talk about Oklahoma Navy. Go a little bit more in depth on this. So a little mini schooner pod pivot here. OU Navy Armed Forces Bowl. So obviously you don't love being in the Armed Forces Bowl, and I think getting a service academy might be quite possibly the worst case scenario for any team having to prep for the triple option. But I don't know. Ty, you and I have talked about it a lot, so I want to hear from Jameson. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Obviously, trickier than your average one. A little bit hard to get up for. Maybe. What do you think?
I think it's crazy how the betting line has shifted double digits and now is at OU -3. Like, it is wild. Like, right? Blake's like yelling off camera. It was like 13, I think, whenever it first opened. I think it was like 12.5. I don't know. But now it's 3 points. 3, which I think is a little bit of an insult to Oklahoma. I think Navy played really well versus Army. And obviously there's the scare of, the triple option, the bowl game. But, for the most part, Oklahoma has a lot of their defense playing in this game from what we've heard now. Like, we've got 5 days until we're going in. But from like the depth chart as of December 19th, whenever it was released, like, you go down the lines of starters, you still got Ethan Downs, Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams, R. Mason Thomas on your defensive line. And at the mic, you got Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis. Like, that is a great front seven that can really combat this Navy team, that I feel good about this defense going against their offense. The other side of the ball is a completely different conversation, but I think that the 3 points is a little bit almost of an insult to this defense.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you're missing Danny Stutzman, you're missing Billy Bowman, but overall, the quality of guy, just physically, is a different level than the Service Academy fellows. And to me, I think, Navy executed excellent against Army. Hell of a game plan there. But we've also seen them sort of, wilt a little bit whenever they face more physical competition, bigger competition. And I think that's, I don't know. I think it's too much of a swing. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. And I think there's definitely a chance that Navy can win this ball game, especially given, Oklahoma starting Michael Hawkins Jr., who we haven't seen in a while. Obviously, the wide receiver room has been decimated, so the Sooners might end up running more triple option or more option than Navy at that point. But I don't know. I think the physicality aspect, OU still has the physical athlete edge on the midshipmen. So, oh no.
What's oh no?
Blake, you got any thoughts?
I think
Oh, I think he said, "Oh no."
Oh, no.
And
I
was
thought so
"What
too. I
happened?"
just said, "Oh no." And then he like kind of froze there for a second. I was like, "Oh Jesus!" Like, did Mateer and Ben
Mr.
Arbuckle take some job elsewhere?
Mr. President, another wave of players has entered the portal.
No, everything's fine except for Justin Jefferson ripping my heart out and just
Yeah.
stomping on it.
Yeah, Amir Abdullah just got a touchdown right now, so me sending a Rizzler dancing gif is starting to look worse.
You knew better than that, Jameson. Anyways, Blake, what's your take on this matchup?
No, like I think this one is actually going to be a really good and intriguing one. Like, although we're doing it kind of for time constraints, it's like the problem with this bowl season is just you scroll down and see there's about dozens of opt-outs or people in the transfer portal or other things on every single team. So you really don't, even the matchups that look good on paper, just seeing the logos, typically you go see the spreads and you're like, oh, one of these teams is sending everybody out. But I honestly think this one's like good in the sense that you get an Oklahoma team has a lot in the portal, not many guys there. I think will be vastly improved come next season with the scheme, with Mateer, who I'm very excited that OU got. Like, I think that's adds on, I think, 2 wins to the win total next year, which is significant. But I think it's a OU team that probably, I wouldn't say doesn't want to be here, but it's going to be harder to get up for this one. Whenever they were showing those practice clips of Michael Hawkins having to run reps for both first team and second team because they don't have enough quarterbacks to even play. This is just a hard matchup because Navy's not going to quit. Like, even if OU gets up big, they're going to chip away. You can't really put the foot on the brake ever. You're going to have to play hard. But the good thing is, I think OU wins this. I think OU covers the spread. Y'all's defense is just so good. Like, it's a good defense that Navy just has not seen before. One that's very physical, one that's able to, I think, where the Navies and the Armies of the world have improved in the last few years is incorporating a little bit of like a tricky pass game that they like fake the option, get somebody downfield. Y'all have good safeties. Y'all have good corners that can cover that. Like, I'm not as worried. I'm more worried, I guess, on the Navy side, just the effectiveness going up against a more stout defensive side that I think is still pretty motivated to play. Like, is Danny Stutzman playing? Is like some of those senior guys
No,
no, he's not.
Billy's gone. But for the depth chart itself, for the starters, you're getting every single starter on the depth chart that was released 3 days ago, except for those two. Okay. And obviously, there's still things to be determined, and there'll probably be some opt-outs that we won't know until closer. But as of right now, that's all we know.
But like, this is also an opportunity for like Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis, some of these other guys to really step up and establish sort of themselves in the pecking order for.
And they're redshirt sophomores too, so like they're not they're not on watch unless they're going to hit the transfer portal. So
right.
This is going to be an intriguing game. I like this one's actually.
I would think like you would rather, if you had any idea of portaling, you would portal before playing Navy. Like, that doesn't seem like a very fun thing to do. Like, you could just save yourself the trouble and just go ahead and leave now.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of guys on defense that portal after the game, though. Want to show the respect of this team and finish out the season. I wouldn't be surprised. Sure. I don't have any kind of insight on this. I've not read this anywhere.
Well, if you don't have a ton of tape out there, it maybe makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm saying like a starter. There's probably one guy on our starting defense that we really don't want to see leave, and he leaves.
Well,
and then Dominic Williams and R. Mason Thomas are trying to get bags right now, and the news is that R. Mason Thomas has gotten his bag and should stay, but Dominic Williams is to be determined. But still,
yeah. I was going to say, especially with maybe some of these teams in the playoff or something, that you might see some all of a sudden have a opening at a certain spot. A bag comes out by someone. So
Dominic Williams is thinking about entering the portal.
I think he's just
he's a merchant, just a little portal merchant, just grabbing bags, not doing anything. Screw that bum.
He wants a raise. He wants a raise, but
what?
Dude, as he needs to be on the phone with SMU right now. He needs to be on the phone with the SMU boosters right now.
Oh yeah, they're willing to shell out whatever.
Here's one thing on
All
this
right.
game. I know it's kind of been sort of hinted at, but right, Navy's coach watches most of the OU games when he can. So this is not like he's not new to OU. So that's certainly something. But Navy's going to be tough in this one. I think that factor of it really does matter to them. They're not reeling from any sort of portal losses like their regular college football team or Army. They're not, you know, it's everything is there for them. They're continuing to rise and to peak, and as long as Hovarth stays healthy, that's what kind of cost us that Tulane game. That could be a big factor, right? Like Navy's Rice game, there's a big question mark there, but look at Navy against Notre Dame. It was 42-10. Would OU do any better against that Notre Dame team this year? I don't know, but I don't know. Navy will certainly have to cook up something different. You will not see the offensive game plan that you saw against Army because, like we touched on, it doesn't matter what level of backups that you have at linebacker and out in the secondary. You just can't do some of those little tricks and have those people just wide open. Like it's the constant service academy problem is the issue is never getting the the receivers open in the backfield, not in the backfield. In deep, it's getting the quarterback to actually be able to complete the pass. So we're just not going to see that. And I think if Navy tries it, that could be a big swing for OU because I don't know that I'm expecting a whole ton from OU's offense, but if Navy tries to run the same stuff that worked against Army, this OU defense will be able to create turnovers in the secondary, in particular, interceptions and everything else. As great as Hovarth has been, that I think that could be a big swing for the game. I think if Navy goes more traditional, kind of away from the way that they're trending, I know you would say, "Oh, don't do that. Don't backtrack on what you're doing." But if they can go more traditional service academy and play that time of possession game, this is going to be a rough one. I don't think this one. I think could have a close final score either way, but this one could either go Navy wins by 10 and it's entertaining to watch, or this one is painful to watch for everyone because it's just a time of possession grind and you end the game with like 6 or 7 possessions combined.
Dude,
so
Hawkins might have a big game running the ball. That's another thing too.
He could, but you're also talking about a defense that has, dealt with containing quarterbacks. Like Hawkins, how would Hawkins do if he played for West Point? But you guys got to remember that West Point quarterback until he played Navy was he 4th or 5th in Heisman voting?
But Hawkins' run style will be different than
touchdowns.
than the Army style. He'll be out in shotgun. He'll be spreading out the field, and he'll be using his speed to get around their athletes.
Yeah,
it's different. It's definitely a different setup.
It's very different.
And obviously the offensive line, had its moments of being, a bit maligned. They've improved. And they're also facing a Navy defensive line instead of an SEC one, which I feel like adds to it as well.
Is Hawkins going to be catching the passes too? Do we have any receivers left? I'm not trying to do a bit.
Who's the receiver
catching the passes?
We don't need to talk about.
The only person I know that's staying is not healthy, right?
Jacob Jordan is going to ball out, man.
And then is Burks even going to play in this game?
I don't think that's what I mean.
Maybe. Burks is a maybe. He's been practicing.
Carry on.
You might have to have Burks.
I feel like that's a no.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
So, and who knows if Jacob Jordan's even anything if it's not Jackson Arnold throwing it to him. So
yeah,
TBD.
That's fair. Okay, so OU -3. What's the picks, guys?
Yes, favorite pick of Bulls right there. I love that -3.
I'm gonna go Sooners -3 as well.
I'm gonna go Sooners -3.
Put me on an island again. I guess I'm going with Navy on this one. I just think they care. It's an OU team that's reeling and apathetic, and I think just looking for the season to be over versus is OU on paper a better team? But
I think maybe the people who are staying a little less apathetic. I think having a new direction, and Arbuckle's not calling the plays, but he will be coaching quarterbacks and will be on the sideline there with Kevin Johns' exit. So maybe there's a little bit of a renewed hope. The guys who won it out are out. I don't know, but I'm mentally preparing myself to lose the Navy. I think it can happen.
I don't think
I
it
think that's-
matters at this point. I
It
don't think
doesn't-
any
it
OU
doesn't-
fan has their opinion changed by this game because the positive ones are
Yeah.
it's still all about next season, and the negative ones are it doesn't matter. So
Well, I will say 7-6 feels a little bit better than 6-7, just a little bit. Having the number and the first number be bigger than the second number, it matters a little bit. It shouldn't, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Anyways, so
who
of
you
course
cheering
this
for,
game going
Ty?
down.
Wait, who are you cheering for, Ty?
whoever's
I need to
winning
know
at the
this. I
time.
don't.
whoever's
What?
winning.
Boo!
What?
I'll cheer
So what
all
are
time
what? What?
I'll cheer all time.
What are you gonna wear? What are you gonna
I'm
wear?
not
You wearing your
gonna cheer
Navy
all
jersey? You wearing the
He's
Unity?
wearing nothing.
What's up?
Ty said he's wearing nothing.
I mean, it is hot. It's too hot.
Watching OU Navy.
I'm in shorts right now, but I'm burning up in this Christmas sweater that I put on. It's like 83, I think.
Ty must
Yeah,
watch the
that's
game
funny.
in the nude.
Oh God.
I might just forget. I completely forgot ASU was even in the playoff until just now because no one here cares or talks about it.
Oh my God. That's funny. Well, anyways, so this game, the Armed Forces Bowl, of course, going down at Amon G. Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, and one of our, of course, Bowden Blake. If you're not used to this podcast, not an OU fan. He is, in fact, TCU grad, TCU season ticket holder. So the Sooners playing a home game in your stadium of choice. Blake. So first of all, Amon G. Carter, I love it. Great stadium. I wish I could be going back to that. But overall, for anyone who hasn't visited Fort Worth, and I imagine like Fort Worth, a lot of people are either from the DFW area or have been to Fort Worth. It's not far away. Do you have any recommendations for Fort Worth? Any like around the TCU area, around the campus? Any tips or tricks? What would your guide to a Fort Worth game day experience be for those?
Go to the lab.
uninitiated?
The lab.
I wish.
The-
R.I.P.
The lab's been dead for like 10 years now.
I think it's like a Solana now. Like I think it's just
Oh.
like many of the traditional college institutions that were probably shut down for underage drinking. They just became a chain of some sort of Jimmy John's.
Boo.
The lab.
Tragic. The lab. What a place.
But if you're gonna do more just easy game day experience, maybe not going for the quality of food per se, but want something easy, I think two options near campus: Buff Bros Classic Wings Joint has a just like a good amount of just wings, pizza, good beers, stuff like that. Great place to watch games beforehand. I know OU's probably the first one at the game, but you could also do that afterwards. That or Dutch's are probably the two best places close to campus. Like that's within walking distance. If you're parking, you can walk there, walk to the game. Takes you about 5 minutes. If you want to go a little bit further, I would say a good place on a nice day, which it could be because I think the weather in Texas, honestly, it really hasn't been that bad as of recent. The Woodshed is a great place to go pregame. I wouldn't say it's the best barbecue. Like there's definitely better barbecue places in Fort Worth, but if you want to go for more of a game day experience, one that has picnic tables, if it's a little colder, they have the fireplaces, usually have live music. It's a great one. It's by the river. It's probably about a mile away from TCU's stadium, usually pretty quick, has some good barbecue options. They've kind of had more of an Asian influence into their menu now. So I went there the other day, had some great tacos that were like some beef bulgogi tacos and stuff like that. So it's a great one. I would say those three for like game day wise. If you want to expand it and go for more of the quality foods, the barbecue heads, you should either be going to Goldie's, you should go to Panther City, or you should go to Heim. Those are probably like the three best. Goldie's being like the number one in Texas for Texas Monthly. Panther City got a recommendation, I believe. Not a big gourmand, but a recommendation for the Michelin Guide as of recent. And then Heim's just like a classic TCU institution. Those are the three great barbecue places. Tex-Mex, always go Joe T's. That's probably the coolest experience. Another outdoor place near the stockyards. Bring cash. They only take cash, and I haven't used the ATM there, but it probably rips you off. And then the last thing I say after the games, if you haven't been to Fort Worth in a while, West 7th, do not go. Do not go to West 7th. The stockyards are now bustling. They're awesome. They have great bars down there, great live music. Second Rodeo is a great bar that's just a good indoor-outdoor combo, kind of make their own beer. It's just has some live music. It's a great vibe, new bar. The White Elephant Saloon, if you want to go more divey down there, definitely it has the live music, definitely has the country feel of the stockyards. Probably you're going to be the only one not in boots and a cowboy hat, but there's so many great options down there. If you want an easy area for food afterwards, bars, that's the easiest place to go. The stockyards, it's great. It has a lot of Fort Worth staples there. And it's just been like, it's a lot cooler than when I was there in college. There's actually things to do down there. So that's what I would recommend if you were spending the weekend in Fort Worth.
Well, there you go. That's pretty comprehensive. I will say, in terms of the barbecue list, because I can't vouch for I cannot vouch for Goldie's because I haven't had it yet. That'll be a bit of a difficult trek, kind of going out to Kennedale.
Far. It is far.
Yeah,
South
it's far.
Like, the southest Fort Worth you can.
It's far, and you'll have to do it on Saturday because just timing wise, with this game being 11 a.m., it wouldn't be able to work. Panther City and Heim are way more accessible. I personally trend more towards Panther City. Absolutely love the brisket elotes. Oh my God. Unbelievable. But Heim is just iconic, with the, bacon burnt ends. You can actually see my video attempting to recreate them on Football Feast. It truly is one of the best barbecue items out there. And, they're the ones who invented it. So Heim is just remarkable. 2 locations. Great spot there. So those are the 2 things.
Oh,
how was it?
It was wonderful. Yeah, I had a fatty piece of brisket and bacon burnt ends, baby. It was just Fat City.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's how you do it.
That's so good. That incredible. But yeah, no, outside of that, I did not know. I did see. I'm glad we asked you this because I had no idea about the stockyards being cool. So
the stockyards is awesome. Have you been down there before, Jameson? Like the Hotel Drover and stuff like that?
I went to Hotel Drover not too long ago and really, really nice, super cool. And then one other time I went out and about in stockyards. It's really nice, and I've heard the same thing as you from people around here that it's like turning cooler and cooler.
Jameson, do you have any good places?
No,
you're actually in Fort Worth right now.
Blake was very comprehensive. I think we can defer to that. I don't have to do that.
I would
the lab.
I would agree with that.
The lab.
Hey, I'm still a big fan of the pub if it's still down there.
It is still down there. It's busy after games. I went after the OSU game and it was packed, which is good. Like, it's glad to see that it's like your favorite institutions that used to not be very packed or like now thriving businesses. Like, that's always a refreshing thing. But yeah, it's a good one for an after the game. It's right next to Pub Pros. Look it up. It's basically in an alleyway that they put walls on the front and the back, and that is it.
That whole TCU little strip there is awesome, though. Do they still have the little crock pot of random little hot dogs with the little weenies?
They don't. I don't think that. I think they like have grown too big.
Damn.
I did not see it the last time. I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, they used to have. God, who was the football players? Who's the sausages they were? But it was one of those.
Earl Campbell's.
Earl Campbell's. That's what it was. Just sitting in the corner in a crock pot all day.
I don't think I could ever trust Earl Campbell's. I had an Earl Campbell's sausage wrap at a Baylor game, and it made that drive home very difficult. Which that's probably my fault.
Earl Campbell's like sausages, you're desperate at that point. You are desperate. Like you've exhausted all food options, and that's the only sustenance you have. They are not good. I've never had a good one. Like I've had those sausage wraps like you before, Bobby. They had them at TCU Stadium. They're like just so dry. There's nothing on them. It's just a tortilla and a sausage, and you're just chewing on that thing. It's it's an all-time bad stadium item.
Oh my god, yeah. I didn't hate the idea of it, and I would definitely, if it didn't make me as sick as it did, I would definitely have tried it again. TCU, great concessions too. I had a really good bratwurst there, so last time out. So, anyways, we've yapped way too much about college football. Thank you all so much for listening on your holidays, whether you're watching us live or en route to your final destination of wherever you're going. I sound like a stewardess here. Thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate it, and appreciate your support all season long. We'll be back at some undetermined time after the holidays. Thank you all again, and have a happy holidays season from all of us at the Scooter Pod. We'll see you next time. Good luck out there, everyone.